Here we see the wild Popo going about its day and, sir, you realize you aren't going anywhere, right?
Oh, Cotton. Yeah, I know.
Yes, hello. Why?
Oh, I'm exercising. Just gotta lose some of my juicy fat.
Your juicy fat?
Well, that's what Tigrex called it.
I understand now. It's Big Trouble in Little Iceborne with the return of everyone's favorite feline dinosaur hybrid. No, actually, it's Tigrex. The titanic tyrant of the tumultuous tundra, the invaluable invader, the baddie that hit me in my no-no place and made me cart. There are many names for this vicious beast, and none of them are capable of summing up the enjoyment that is his fight. A fight which is coming directly to Iceborne after making a short detour to be in the Iceborne beta right now. So with all of the difficulty and pain Tigrex is causing hunters, both old and new, what is the best way to finish this quest in one piece? Well, as with most monsters in Monster Hunter, the trick to beating the monster is to lower its health to 0 while keeping your own health above 0, which is made a lot easier by knowing a monster's patterns, including where he fights, how he fights, the surprisingly large amount of ways that you can make the fight easier for yourself, and my personal feelings about Iceborne's new version of Tigrex, because that helps you beat him. So without further ado, let's dive right into the meat of this carnivore and chow down on his moveset. Tigrex's moves can be easily split into a few categories. Attacks that come from his arm, from his tail, from his face and his arms, and from his face, arms, and tail. In other words, he is a relentless prick who will hit you with literally everything he has except for his relentless prick. As a monster, he is of course smooth as a Barbie doll. Tigrex as a monster actually has one of the simplest repertoires of moves, only actually having a handful of them, in the form of a little bite, a slightly less little double bite, an arm swipe, a tail slap, a tail spin, a ranged arc shot, a little jump bite, a charge, and, unique to Tigrex, at least as far as World's monster roster goes, a damaging roar when he enrages. The specific moves to pay the most attention to in that list are the tail spin, which covers a massive amount of space very quickly, the arm swipe, which comes unexpectedly from the side and with quite some pace, and the damaging roar, which only happens when Tigrex is enraged and is always preceded by a backwards leap. This version of the attack also has absolutely minuscule range, so honestly, if you get hit by the world iteration of this ability, you either got super unlucky, or you have a similar amount of brain function to Brick Tamland.
Good one.
If Tigrex looks like he's about to try and push the ground down somehow, then he's about to pull off his classic paw balls.
His classic paw balls.
Which is an arm thrust from either arm, which fires out 3 little clumps of whatever the terrain happens to be, and an arc. An arc, which means be careful about rolling sideways. Be careful about rolling sideways. Why can't I take my own advice? This move applies ice blight in icy areas, so expect that to be a factor throughout his existence on this icy little island. Tigrex's final individual move worth talking about then is actually worth talking about specifically because of how it works into his combos, and that is his charge. Tigrex turns into a hungry hippo and tries to suck up anything that could be described as edible in front of him, and then 9 times out of 10 he'll end this charge with a quick spin around into a second charge, which will then either combo into his little pounce attack, which is essentially just a faster charge with a smaller hitbox, or he will combo it into his nasty little tail spin. A couple neat things to note here, first being, well, Flash, Tigrex won't do any of his charge moves, which makes him much less mobile and a significantly easier target to hit. The second note is if Tigrex is exhausted and he tries to do the turnaround to combo into a second charge, he will crumple to the floor faster than a piece of paper on a planet with really high gravity or something. Look, they can't all be winners. If Tigrex looks like he's starting a charge, then get the hell out of there. Sheath, if you have the time, as this chain of attacks lasts quite some time, and being stuck with a heftier weapon out is deadly. If you don't have the time, either roll sideways twice, or roll forwards once under his wing. When Tigrex charges, there's a tiny little safe spot in his armpit you can use to escape his anger, and it makes you feel a little bit like Ant-Man too. So now you know what Tigrex wants to throw at you, but where does he intend to throw it at you from? Well, Tigrex is an invader, which means in the full release of Iceborne, he will be on any map he feels like. But in the beta and on the Hoarfrost Reach, Tigrex starts the hunt in Zone 11. After a short fight, he'll begin working his way up the tunnel and out to Zone 7, where he fights until he's hungry, at which point he usually wanders off to Zone 6 for a Popo-based snack, though on rare occasion, he can instead wander into the lower half of Zone 7. Past these are where he starts to branch out a little more depending on his mood, but assuming you do enough damage to cause him to limp, he will always wind up back in the same place, the Banburrow nest in Zone 6, where he sleeps right beside Banburrow's poo, because it calms him or something, I guess. Now, as for making Tigrex's hunt a little bit easier on yourself, that is where the quests, the map, and Tigrex himself all get much more interesting and complex. First off, Tigrex is weakest to thunder, and he also goes against the grain and actually takes more damage when he's enraged, meaning his enraged phase is way higher risk, but also higher reward. Now, as far as our beta quest specifically, a really easy way to make the fight a touch easier for yourself is to grab your extra supplies from the tent in the camp. There's a pitfall trap, some flash pods and dung pods, demon powder, armor powder, and 1 mega barrel bomb. Only one? Only one. Don't question it. The fastest way to get to Tigrex's hoarfrost starting position is to start in Central Camp 7. Drop down this tiny little hole, crawl out of the cave, and bam, big boy in front. In this first zone, there are tiny little air geysers, which send you up into the air and allow a jump attack when they are spurting out air, which is a quick and easy way to get an early mount, which is especially useful in group hunts. If you want to use the glider mantle, you can actually glide off of them when they're not spitting out air at all. This pitfall trap right here had a super weird interaction that caused Tigrex to sort of walk back and forth around this tunnel for a little bit, but I wasn't able to recreate it. I don't know, maybe knowing that will help you for some reason.
And I based that on absolutely nothing.
Once Tigrex has reached the upper part of Zone 7, you should make sure to take advantage of the 2 new environmental traps in the area. If disturbed enough, the ground will begin to vigorously shake until the area in question is completely shaved off into the water below. If Tigrex is on this platform when it falls, you will have to jump back up to the ledge with reckless abandon, creating a massive opening for hunters to do damage as he struggles to climb back up. If instead you are on one of these platforms when they fall, you will wind up chucked out into this creepy cave miles away from Tigrex. Trust me, I've done it enough times by this point to be pretty certain. Now, after this zone, Tigrex will go either to Zone 6 or very rarely to the lower half of Zone 7, which he seems to treat as a different zone to the upper half because he won't go there unless he's enraged or out of combat just walking there normally. This is where it gets particularly interesting though, because while Banburrow can show up in Zone 6 and do a decent job of both dealing damage to and shielding you from damage from the Tigrex, he's just as likely to hit you or get in the way of your attacks. So in actuality, you want Tigrex to go to this new portion of Zone 7 instead. You want it so much so, in fact, that after causing both ice drops in the upper half of Zone 7, I would recommend actually using a Challenger Mantle to get him there.
I also like to live dangerously.
No, don't knock it till you try it, because as long as Tigrex hasn't had a part break on his head yet, all of his bite attacks in this area will get his face stuck on this crystal, and this crystal, and this one too. Though we didn't actually do that one in front of me. I think he might have just been a little shy, honestly. This area is a big deal, guys. When Tigrex gets his face stuck in a crystal, it takes him 10 seconds to get out. For comparison, that is the length of the first pitfall trap of a hunt, and you can make it happen 3 times in this zone as long as you get here without breaking Tigrex's face first. I absolutely cannot understate how much of an opportunity for damage this actually is. Once Tigrex is tired of this zone, he will either go down the little path here into the cave of Zone 9 or over to Zone 4. If it got interesting earlier, this is where it gets even better, because assuming you didn't blitz through that zone, you will hopefully have your Challenger Mantle off cooldown again. Use it.
Has the planet gone mad?
Bring the Tigrex to Zone 4, where he will inevitably trigger the Avalanche Environmental Trap, which drags both you and him down to the caves of Zone 9 anyways, but with a ton of extra damage done to your scaly opponents. As if you hadn't been lended enough miracles down from the heavens in the form of environmental help, this room has flash flies, which I mentioned the main use of in the move section, as well as having 2 droppable stalactites. That's right, I really do know the difference between stalagmite and stalactite. If you follow Tiggy to his next choice of zone on this path, he'll wind up right where you come out when you fall into the breach, which is convenient both due to the poison lanterns here and the paratoad. Now, honestly, if you were doing even remotely reasonable damage to him while doing this strategy, you'll probably have him limping off to the Banburrow nest sometime during his residency in the lower half of Zone 7. But if you use this path completely, you could pretty much kill him solely through the moments that he can't really hit you back. Aside from all of that, you pretty much just want to keep your wits about you. Make proper use of all your items and traps and knives. His weakest point is his head, but breaking this too early will negate the utility of the crystals in lower Zone 7, so you do want to be a little careful if you do plan to use this strategy, which you really should. As for a recommended weapon, play whatever you enjoy playing. You will always be better with something you're comfortable with anyways, except for New Lance. The first time I used New Lance, I soloed a Tigrex in just under 17 minutes, and this was almost exclusively with the Clutch Claw guard counter and the Slinger Burst Shot. New Lance is nuts. Alright then everybody, that's everything about Tigrex and how to beat him in the safest and smartest ways possible. But how do I feel about World's version of Tigrex as a whole?
Oh yeah, that's it. Oh god.
That's right, I am a massive fan of Tigrex's adaptation in the New World. As the first monster that I have fought in the Old World before fighting the New World version, I will always have a special place in my heart now for this quest and for Tigrex, not that I didn't already. But the changes to Tiggy are very, very minimal and absolutely fitting and impactful, the main one of which being the lowered idle frames. Iceborne's Tigrex is incredibly aggressive and will switch from attack to attack notably faster than the Old World Tigrex. Well, that just makes him harder! Actually, Timmy, it doesn't, at least not in comparison. It makes him balanced for the New World. Tigrex as a monster has always been about simplicity and relentlessness. His only goal is to eat you, and he will accomplish that by any means possible. And while looking at his changes in a vacuum would make it look like Tigrex was hard buffed for World, in reality, he was simply altered to be brought in line with World's different mechanics, specifically area size and the ability to move while healing. With both of those things in mind, it suddenly feels a lot more reasonable for Tigrex to be quicker between attacks, and honestly, once you get the hang of the timings, he is, if anything, more satisfying to hunt than he was in the Old World. This change fits his personality, it's fun to fight against. As far as I'm concerned, this is exactly how you bring a monster from the Old World to the New, with style, and with grace, and with dung next to his face. Seriously, why doesn't he just face the other way when he sleeps? I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been your guide to defeating Tigrex in the New World. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the little notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or report important news about the Kingdom Animalia. Rage, Cotton, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear. So if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons, even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.